Hi, folks. I hope you're enjoying the summit. So I'm Xavier Vello. I'm the maintainer of the Let's Block It project, a project to increase the signal-to-noise ratio on the internet. During this session, I want to discuss the design process I went through with this project, and I want to give you some advice for people starting a new project. So I currently live in Paris. I work as a distributed systems engineer in large-scale SaaS companies. I've been running Linux for 2 decades now, and although I made some contributions to some projects, I never invested the time to become a core contributor. Like many of us, I do have a lot of unfinished projects. I like to start things, but I have a hard time finishing them. But this time I think I broke the curse, and that's why I want to share my experience with you. So to get started, I want to quickly run you through how I got the idea for this project and what value it brings to its users. One of the projects I failed twice is learning how to do amigurumis. They are plushies that you crochet from yarn. You have to look it up if you don't know them. Their source code, it's called a pattern. And if you looked for patterns on Google, the results are really not good. So here's an example for the search for amigurumi cactus patterns. Of course, everything above the fold, it's ads, but that's to be expected on Google. And then afterwards, you get image results and video results. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for text results. And then after all of that, you get some organic results. The first one, of course, it's Pinterest, which is a dead end for the internet. I'm not interested. And the second one, it's an SEO spam blog, this kind of blogs that don't give you good information, but they rank really high. And then after that, you have 3 results that are okay. Yeah. And unfortunately, I think this is representative of the degradation of the signal-to-noise ratio on the internet. Like many of us, I use an ad blocker that hides, that red part, the ads, but I wanted to see whether I can do something to remove more of that noise. So I use uBlock Origin as an ad blocker, and if you go to its repo on GitHub, the README starts with the following sentence. uBlock Origin is not an ad blocker, it's a wide spectrum blocker, which happens to be able to function as a mere ad blocker. And when I read that, I found it was very interesting. And this is because they've been playing the cat and mouse game with advertisers for years now, and they developed very powerful filtering capabilities. So right now, if you install uBlock Origin, the default settings will block the ads, the tracker, the malware, but you can also enable optional lists that will block pop-ups and other annoyances, such as social media buttons. My question then became, how can I harness these capabilities to filter out more low-value content? But the main issue I identified is that we all have our own definition of what low-value content is. So, for example, the most popular template right now on Let's Block It, it's the template to hide YouTube Shorts. I hate them, but my partner watches them. I love them. So my solution to that issue is to allow users to define what they want to remove. And to that end, I had to split the project into 2 parts. The first one is a corpus of customizable templates, and the other one is a web application that you use to build your custom list. I wanted to support self-hosting, but also provide an official instance that users can just sign in and use to make the project accessible to more people. So here's what it looks like. After creating an account on Let's Block It, you can browse and choose templates that you want to use. The third most popular template, as of now, it's the one to remove clutter from the Google search interface. It allows you to customize the rules, and you just switch the options on and off. You look at the preview at the bottom. This is uBlock rules, and you click on Add Filter to save your preferences. The second most popular template, it's the one to hide websites from search results. So as the user, you select the web search engines that you use. You add the list of websites you're not interested in, and the rules are created dynamically. Also, you can see at the bottom, the community maintains presets that you can enable, for example, to hide GitHub copycats or Stack Overflow copycats. So you just add the filter. And after you set up your filters, you get this URL to your customized list. And that's the list that you add to your ad blocker. And you can add it to several browsers. So I have it on my personal laptop and my work laptop. I don't use profile syncing, but I use this URL on both computers. And here bottom, you can see the output of the two templates customized to my own tastes. And here's the same search page as before with the filters enabled. And here we can see that the low value content I don't want to see is hidden, and the signal to noise ratio is greatly enhanced. So that's the value proposition. And as many projects, this one started as a way to scratch my own itch. But I got positive feedback from friends on this idea, and I decided to make it more accessible and work on building a community of maintainers that could slowly increase the number of templates and the number of websites we support. This project has a very niche audience. It's for power users, and it doesn't have any potential to make money, and that's completely fine by me. That just means I need to make it sustainable as a weekend project. That means my focus has to be on slow growth and a reduced scope that I can commit to for the long run. So let's talk about the template corpus first, the first part of the project. I first needed to define a clear scope for that project. As I told you, playing the cat and mouse game with advertisers, it's not interesting to me. And that topic is already covered by the community. So there's no need to duplicate efforts there. It's the same for, annoyances that have a good consensus, annoyances, socials. There's no need to duplicate the work. We already have the EasyList project and the AdGuard project that do that very well. At the top of the pyramid, there are rules that are so specific that they wouldn't really benefit the project. And so by elimination, I found the scope that I want to cover with this project. And it's rules that can benefit several people, but don't fit in one of the existing lists. And also rules that require customization to be useful. Most projects, they have a high risk of scope creep, adding until, it's not sustainable. And especially open source projects, as a maintainer, I put my work out there to help people. And so it's hard to say no, to say, I'm not going to help you. But, when I read about, the pitfalls of maintaining a project, the main advice I got is to avoid exceeding your carrying capacity. That means avoid committing to a scope that is too big to maintain. And that scope can, increase as you get more experience, as you have more maintainers, but you have to be aware of that. When websites are updated, rules usually require an update. They will break and you have to, match the new names of the elements. That means that every new template in the corpus is an additional maintenance burden on the project. So I had to learn to say no to keep the scope reasonable. That means redirecting requests to other projects, so EasyList, AdGuards, or rejecting some ideas that don't really make sense for now. Also, there are several ad blockers on the market that have different capabilities, and supporting all of them would be too big of an endeavor. So I decided to focus on uBlock Origin first and expand later on when more maintainers are on board in the project. The second part of the project is the server. I try to make it as low maintenance as possible so that I can focus on the corpus and on the community management instead of, doing code fixes, upgrades, and operations. So to do that, I chose borrowing dependencies. I'm 37 now, and, borrowing is good. So I chose dependencies that have a good track record for stability and maintenance, and so that the server could be in autopilot mode. The backend is in Go because that's what I use at my current job. I don't have a lot of dependencies, and all of them are I vetted for being mature projects. The front end is server-side rendered with handlebar templates, and the only front-end dependencies I have are Bootstrap 5, tabular icons, and HTMX for progressive enhancements. I'm a backend engineer. I don't know really JavaScript, but I managed to do 92 lines of JavaScript, mostly for the template setup form, so that it is a bit more responsive and useful. And because I chose a small amount of dependencies and dependencies that are pretty stable, I upgrade them automatically every week, and I didn't have any breakage so far, and I think I have very low risk of breakage. The core features of the application to choose your templates, put your settings, get the rules, get the list, I took me a few weeks to implement. But before I could release it to users, I had to tackle authentication and user management. And this is why I'm here at Ory Summit. I struggled with that for more than a month. I had to learn about password hashing, session management, CRSRF protection, email validation, password recovery. I almost canceled the project because that's too much. And I didn't trust myself to do it well. So that's why I reached out to Ory to ask them to sponsor the project, and they accepted. And I'm really thankful for them because that's why I was able to release that project. So Ory hosts the Kratos instance and built a custom UI for the forms, and I was able to release very fast. I'm using the server-side flow. That means the server catches the cookie and then calls Kratos to get the user UID. And that means I don't even know the user's email or passwords. That means my server doesn't handle any private information, and I can go in vacations for 2 weeks or sleep at night, knowing that even if I were to get a data breach, it wouldn't be that bad. And so far, performance and reliability have been very good, and the folks at Ory have been very responsive. So I'm happy with that choice. The other part I decided not to build myself is the contribution flow. So I wanted to build a community of maintainers that could, create new templates and add improvements or fixes to the existing ones. And a typical user-generated flow, you have to, have a form for the input. You have to do validation, moderation, have users report bad and outdated templates. There's a risk of abuse, so you have to build up more moderation, and then need to decide how to distribute that corpus to these self-hosted instances. So yeah, I decided to just scrap all of that and delegate all of that to GitHub. So the templates are files in the repository, and when I build the server, they are embedded in the binary. So contributors can open PRs. When the PR is open, I have continuous integration running LinkedIn testing, and I can review and merge directly from the GitHub interface. And to signal breakages, to request new features, user open issues. It could have been another forge, but I chose GitHub because this is where the uBlock community is right now. So when I redirect a user to the EasyList project, for example, they are also on GitHub. And yeah, when you choose external dependencies, like these ones, they are pretty, core to what the project is doing. I think it's important to plan, for the exit strategy. So that's what I call low coupling. Ory Network works great for me, but I could grow out of it someday. And that's why I'm relieved to know that I can migrate my user data to a self-hosted Kratos if needed. Also, for self-hosting, I added support for authenticating proxies. So, for example, you can put an Nginx with HTTP basic authentication, and it will do the authentication in front of the server. That means, if I were to need to switch to another provider, I don't have a high coupling with that. So it shouldn't be too disruptive. And it's the same for GitHub. The GitHub is currently under a lot of scrutiny by the community, and I might decide to move out of it in the future, but that should not be a disruptive operation. The code is in Git. I can just push my repository somewhere else, and all of the templates will be there. And also, I decided to have letsblock.it as the official entry point for the project. That means if I move to another forge, I don't lose all of the links and all of the entry points. Lastly, there's a couple of points, on the operation of the official instance. As a distributed system engineer, my job is to build a large-scale system, but that project is not a large-scale system. And it's good to think small. So the app and the database are hosted on a small €3 per month VPS. It's running XOS, and the load is very low. I'm not going to cover it today. It's not the main topic of the talk, but if the load were to increase a lot, I have designed ways that I can scale out I haven't implemented, all of that, but I know I have the plan, and I don't need the complexity right now. And that means that the operations are very easy. I don't have continuous delivery, but I can deploy with a single command. The system and the dependencies are updated automatically, and I just set up, a few data monitors and a few browser checks to make sure that people can sign up and create a filter, and I'll get alerts if something is not nominal. So right now, I don't spend more than 10 minutes a week on the operations, which means, I have more energy to spend on community management. So here's my conclusion. I think our industry is obsessed with growth as the measure of success, but that shouldn't be the only measure of success. I decided to go different routes, and to me, the project will be successful if it's still operating and helping people in 2, 3, 5 years. That's what I set myself for, and that's why I prefer the slow but steady growth strategy. The turtle instead of the hare. That allows me to enforce a small scope instead of chasing new users. Saying no is not comfortable, but it's important to keep the focus. Also, having dependable dependencies helped me making the maintenance and the operation small, which means more energy to build the project forward. So right now, the official instance serves 290 active lists. I've had 8 different people contributing to the template corpus. It could be bigger. I started in January. I went public in January. It could have been bigger, but it could have been, a lot smaller, and that's good enough for me. So if you're interested in testing out the project, please give it a try. As of today, there's 18 different templates for search engines and lots of different websites that are on the slide, but contributions are welcome. So don't hesitate to reach out if you want to help. The public instance is at letsblock.it. It's free, respects your privacy. You'll find instruction also on self-hosting or using a very simple render CLI on the GitHub repository. If you do, try it out. I'd love to get your feedback. So don't hesitate to reach out by email on the Ory Slack community or by opening issue on GitHub. So thanks a lot. Thanks to Ory for being a great sponsor. Don't hesitate to send me an email if you want to follow up. And if you have any question,